Okay, so listen, if you're a religious person, before I get started, I need you to just take that hat off. I have nothing against religion. I'm not anti-religion. I'm not knocking your religion. Whatever you believe in is awesome. I'm just going to ask you to sit that on the side for a minute because I'm going to give you a revelation, a different way of thinking. And if you think of it through a lens of religiousness, you might not get the actual message of what I'm going to share with you. Can I get you to agree with me that you'll just set your religion aside for 1 second? If you're not religious, that's okay as well, right? I'm going to open your eyes to a whole new way of thinking, but I need you to take those glasses off, that thinking cap off, and sit it to the side. Is that cool? All right, perfect. So let's just say this blue sphere that's floating in the middle of outer space that we call Earth, let's just say that that's a microchip implanted in a server. You see, I have a friend, I live in here in Dallas, Texas, and I have a friend who runs a hedge fund. And the hedge fund isn't your typical buying and selling of stock. What they do is they have artificial intelligence, that these robots, we'll call them, they go out there and they follow the trends of stocks and they buy on the way up, and as soon as the stock hits the pivotal momentum, they stop buying and they start selling so that they lock in their profits. Well, in order for him to have this massive amount of artificial intelligence to watch every stock across the world 24 hours a day, across all the markets, across the NASDAQ, the Dow, the things in Europe, Asia, all these different exchanges, they have to have massive amounts of servers. Like when you see pictures of Google and you see all the servers that Google has, they have these storage facilities, and each one of these little storage facilities where they hold these little microchips full of artificial intelligence costs millions of dollars, okay? But they're surrounded by huge black space where these microchips are. So let's just say, for the sake of what I'm about to share with you, this is some life-changing stuff. Let's just say, for the sake of what I'm about to share with you, that we're in a blue sphere floating in one of those servers, right? In outer space is that server. You see, in order for artificial intelligence to be, which we have what we call natural intelligence, but we're not sure if we're coded artificially or not. We're not exactly sure who our creator is. So instead of calling him God, Allah, Yahweh, or whatever it is that your religion believes in, let's just say that there's a divine coder. Much in the way that Bill Gates coded for Microsoft, Mark Zuckerberg coded for Facebook, let's just say that we live on a computer algorithm where there's a divine coder instead of a God that created this whole system here, like almost as if we're in a video game simulation. You see, what I'm going to do, my goal for you in this training is to teach you how to hack the code. You see, so many people, they fall victims to the code. They get in here and they don't think of it as a simulation, and they rely on these outside existential circumstances, and I'm going to teach you in this training how to hack that code. Are you with me? All right, pay close attention. So let's just say that we're on this blue microchip inside this black server floating around. Well, in order for intelligence, whether it be artificial, natural, or in any other way, in order for that intelligence to work, there has to be some sort of code, something that put the DNA within us, right? Matter of fact, one of the biggest breakthroughs in the history of mankind is the breakthrough of them hacking DNA, right? They mapped the human genome. Matter of fact, if you ask any scientist what the biggest discovery in the history of all mankind is, it's the coding of our DNA, right? They mapped the human genome. That's the biggest thing. So something, somewhere, some way coded us. It coded this planet and everything on it, much like a video game simulation. And that's what we're living in. You might say that you're waking up from the Matrix. You might call it whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to say that that algorithm, which on Google they call it Penguin or SEO, on Facebook they call it EdgeRank or the newsfeed hacking, I'm going to call the algorithm for our planet the force of average. You see, because there's everything on this planet that wants to keep you average. You see, Newton's universal law is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And if you believe in that, which it's a universal law, which a law means it can't be disputed, it's a fact. And so if the planet operates on for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, then that means that the code that this planet goes by is a code of average, a code of mediocrity, mind you, and I'll call that the force of average. So much like the artificial intelligence that's coded to watch the stock markets inside my friend's hedge fund, we have been coded on this planet to have an average lifestyle. So anytime that you're going to break through an average lifestyle, you might think of this as a negative way, but it's not. But there's someone who's going to have to be below average. If you're going to have above average stuff, there's someone who's going to have below average stuff, but that's their choice. Just like it's going to be your choice to have above average. If you want to have an above average relationship with your spouse, if you want to have above average relationship with your kids, if you want to have above average finances, if you want to have above average material things, if you want to have above average body, if you want to have above average faith in yourself, then there's got to be somebody, something, somewhere on this this planet that has a below average, just as much below average as you are above average, because this entire planet is coded on what's called a median, right? The mean, the force of average. So what happens is all of our life we're lied to. From the moment your mother squeezed you out of her vagina, you're lied to. Especially if you're a lady and you're watching this, all your life you've been lied to. You've been told the story of happily ever after. When we watch movies, the curtain falls, we see that it's happily ever after. When we read stories as little kids, they tell us 3 little bears and Goldilocks lived happily ever after. And so we spend our entire lives searching for happily ever after. We think if I could just marry that beautiful woman, if I could just get this college degree, if I could just graduate high school, if I could just have X, I could have Y, and we look for this happily ever after. Well, newsflash, motherfuckers, there is no happily ever after. It doesn't exist. It's a myth the force of average uses, the code of this planet uses to keep you from stepping above average. Because here's what happens. You graduate high school, guess what? Life slaps you in the face, you gotta get a job, right? Or you go to college, and you think if I just get a PhD, and I have plenty of clients and friends that have gotten PhDs and then gone, now what? Because there is no happily ever after. We've been programmed since birth, the lie. One of the biggest lies on this planet is that happily ever after exists, and it doesn't. But you know what does exist? You know what's not a lie? You know what's the only truth on this planet? Is that the struggle's waiting around every motherfucking corner on this planet to slap you right in the face. And so what happens is we're distracted looking for happily ever after. We think, if I could just marry her, if I could just get this job, if I could just make $1 million, if I could just drive this car, if I could just have a 6-pack, a 10-inch dick, or whatever the case it is that you look for. And you look for this above average lifestyle, you look for this happily ever after ending to your life, but there's no ever after until the afterlife. And so what happens is you're looking for happily ever after, the struggle shows up and slaps you, and guess what happens? Most people fall a victim. They say, why me, God? Why me, Allah? Why am I a victim? But the truth is, you have to wake up and know that every day you're gonna face struggles. Not a day goes by that something's not going to throw you a curveball. That's the way this planet's designed. That's the way this planet tests you. That's the strength conditioning that we go through as humans to find out the natural selection of who's weak and who's not. You see, we spend our entire lives looking for happily ever after, trying to dodge the struggle. But what a real person has to do, what an intelligent, awake person has to do that understands that the force of average on this planet and how it works, what you have to do is you have to go looking for this struggle. Not just to embrace the struggle, but to fight the struggle. But here's the deal. You won't know how to fight the struggle if you're not looking for the struggle. I know that around every corner, almost anything on this planet can kill you. You drink too much water, you die. You inhale too much air, you die. You trip and fall, you hit your head on the corner of a desk, you could die. Almost everything on this planet is trying to kill you at all times. There is a struggle around every corner here, but yet most people spend their entire lives looking for happily ever after. And if you've turned a blind eye to the struggle, or if you're running from the struggle, or if you're ducking the struggle, or feeling victim to the struggle, and you're focused on happily ever after, which is a lie, something that doesn't exist, then what happens is the force of average keeps you living a life of mediocrity. And I guarantee you're not watching this training, you're not on this video, you're not hearing my voice right now because you want to live a life of mediocrity. You came here right now because you're tired of the same old struggles. Now I want to tell you my life story and how I figured out this code. Is that okay with you? Is it okay to share some personal stuff, to get real with you? Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to burden you with a bunch of my personal stuff and you think, well, this guy, whatever. But I just want to be real with you. You see, I've hacked the code here. I'm a multimillionaire. I'm married to one of the most beautiful women on the planet. I'm the father of 3 of the most handsomest, well-mannered, best kids on the planet. They'll grow up to be senators, president, world leaders, business leaders. They'll go on to be powerful men. And I don't say that to brag to you. I say that because I understand how the force of average happened, and I stopped looking for happily ever after. And I know my kids are going to face the struggle. I know my marriage is going to face the struggle. I know my business is going to face the struggle because I've gone through it and I go through it every day just like you do. The difference is I'm aware. And when the struggle shows up ready to fight, I got my boxing gloves on too. And so here's what I'm going to share with you. You might think, well, this guy just said he's got a perfect family. I didn't say perfect. You might say, well, this guy said that he's got a bunch of money. The money doesn't solve all of your problems. It helps. It definitely doesn't hurt. But I guarantee you, the great philosopher Puff Daddy once said, more money, more problems. And that shit's real. You see, when I was 5 years old, my family was well-to-do. My grandfather was a banker. My other grandfather was an entrepreneur. And it was the 80s, a booming time. Interest rates were in the 20s, so you could put literally $100 in a savings account and you could earn 20% interest on it. That's what the 80s were like. Until the S&Ls crashed. And since my grandfather was a banker, his bank went under. And my grandmother tried to save the local farmers that banked with him because he wasn't a big Bank of America type of banker. He had a small credit union in a small town of 2,000 people. My grandmother tried to save the books of the farmers and ended up going to federal prison. My family was flat broke. We lost everything. We left the life of banking and living in the farm and moved to the hood in one of these, like, not a huge city, but a suburb, but what would be considered one of the shittiest suburbs of the DFW Metroplex at the time, and definitely the worst apartment complex to live in. You see, about that time, my father and my mother, they didn't get along anymore. They got a divorce. I was about 6 years old when my dad left, and I would not see him again until I turned 17 or 18 years old. We don't even speak today. My mother remarried a guy that came from an abusive household, and God bless him, he didn't know what he was doing. And you know, victims of abuse are the first ones to abuse others. He was adopted from his stepfather, and eventually he adopted me. So I had to go, and now all of a sudden, my mother has a new husband. My father abandoned me. I'm adopted. I changed my name from Ryan Russell McCord to Ryan Keith Stewman. I had to go to school the next year. We moved back. Finally, my grandmother got out of prison. We moved back to the small town because we couldn't afford it in the medium-sized city. We moved back on a farm in a trailer house in the middle of Shittsville, Texas. That's a literal town, I think. And what happened was, I go back to school and the kids start saying things like, your daddy left you. You don't even have the same name. Your daddy hated you so much that he took his name from you. And I realized that I hated school. I hated the kids around me. I hated my life. My stepdad would later on go to tell me about 8 years old, he would put me to work at a car wash. I would mow yards to where I would have enough money to pay for my own shoes. He would save labor. I worked for $3.85 an hour vacuuming cars. At 8 years old, well, by the time I was 13, he put me in sales. I would literally stand at the front of the car wash. And when someone would come in wanting a $10 car wash, I would bump them to a $12 and $15 car wash. And they would give me a nickel or a quarter per hour, not per car, more if I kept a certain ticket average. I learned a work ethic at a young man's age. But again, I had to endure abuse from my stepfather. I had to endure mental and physical abuse from my stepfather because he didn't know any better. He did the best he had with the tools he had. However, the shit happened to me. And he would always say things prophetically over me like, you're gonna end up on drugs. You're gonna end up going to prison. You're gonna be a loser your life. You're gonna hang out with losers your entire life. And then he spoke these things prophetically over me almost every day. I remember coming home from school every day thinking, man, I hope my dad's not there because I can't take it today. I thought about taking my lives more times than I can even count. I ran away from home. By the time I was 14, I was running away from home almost every other week. I remember one time it was pouring rain and I ran away from home and I slept underneath the neighbor's car to stay out of the rain for the night as a teenager. Well, turns out my stepfather was right. I quit school at age 15. I have an 8th grade education. That was the last year that I actually graduated a class in school. And like most people who quit school, I went on to use drugs. Started off with marijuana, then moved on to LSD and mushrooms, and then I tried cocaine once, and I overdosed and died. You see, I'm here for a real reason. I've been through some real shit. You see, when I died, there wasn't St. Peter going, well, welcome to the pearly gates. There wasn't the devil going, hey, come party with us. There was nothing, it was it. My happily ever after was just ever after. And so, I got a chance luckily for me, when I overdosed on cocaine, the fire department was right across the street from the apartment that I died in, and they were there within a matter of minutes with the defibrillators or whatever the hell they're called. They shocked me back to life. 1, 2, 3, fuck. I woke up the next day handcuffed to a hospital bed in Plano, Texas. And as I woke up and I made the noise with the handcuff, a police officer walked around and he said, you're under arrest for not only possession of cocaine, but intent to distribute. You see, all that prophetic things that my stepfather had been saying to me became true. I was a drug dealer and a drug addict. And now I have been a very unsuccessful drug dealer and a dead drug addict, all within a matter of an instant. Because everything on this fucking planet is designed to kill you and keep you average. I didn't have any money. I told you my family was poor. I had run away from home. I was 19 years old. I had shit. I mean shit. I had shit for a lawyer, a public defender. I end up getting sentenced to 2 years in state prison. They transferred me around to 8 different prisons during those 2 years. I got more fights than I could count. I promise you, the Texas State Penitentiary is no place for a 20-year-old, 120-pound white boy. I promise you. I've experienced some terrible, traumatic things in my lifetime. You talk about PTSD, I've got it times 10. I get out of prison, I tell myself while I'm in there, I will never, ever, ever in my life put myself back in this situation. I'll never sell another drug. I'll never do another drug. I'll never break another law. And I went on to live the life that I thought I was supposed to live, a life of being average, a life of mediocrity. You see, I said, you know what? I'm gonna fall victim to the force of average and just be average. My stepdad used to tell me, if you'll just blend in, shit'll get better for you. But life's not made for us to blend in. Life's made for average people to blend in. Life's made for people like you and I, for us to stand out. But I thought I would just go back to being average, so I went back to the car wash. I worked my way up to manager, and I told myself this: if I can just become the best car wash guy on the planet, then maybe, just maybe, one day I'll have an opportunity to own this place. I was good at sales. I knew everything, the chemical components of the soap, how to replace every single lever in there, how to do everything. If something broke down in the car wash, I was there to fix it within an instant. I was there at 7:15 every morning. I left at 7:30 every night, and I was the best motherfucking car washer on the planet. And one day a customer came in. There was a regular customer, and she said, every time I'm here, you not only sell me a car wash, you turn around and vacuum my car, and then half the time you're up front wiping it off too. Who are you, Superman? I'd like to offer you a job. But you see, my subliminal conscious snuck into me and it said, Ryan, you're not worthy of any other job. You're a convicted felon, you're an ex-drug addict, and you deserve to work here at this car wash. You see, oftentimes we have this desire for big things, but we have this deservation, this thing that we deserve, smaller things. You see, that's the force of average, working to keep you average. It's working on your thinking. We'll get into that in a minute. Reluctantly, after convincing, this lady was a closer. After convincing me, I took a job in the mortgage industry, and within 60 days of working in the mortgage industry, I had earned over $20,000. It used to take me half a year to make that kind of money. Well, like most people, I'm leveling up financially at a massive rocket ship pace. And so what do? I look for ways to level down because the force of average is sneaking into my life. I got addicted to methamphetamine. And I told myself lies like, I'm just trying to learn the real estate business. I'm staying up all night, tweaking. I'm not partying. I'm not kicking it. I'm not chasing hookers. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm staying here focused on real estate. And I wrote a business plan that allowed me to make $700,000 within a year. Not a plan to make 700, the plan that made me 700. I had it all, the big house, the cars. I kicked the meth addiction, traded it in for Adderall. Well, one day, somebody who I won't name on camera decided that they were going to participate in the force of average against me. And they told the police that I obtained all these nice things by selling drugs again, which was a flat out lie because at this point in my life, I wasn't smoking weed. I wasn't smoking meth. I wasn't doing anything but trying to enjoy the fruits of my labor, but the force of average snuck in on me and the local police kicked in my door. I wasn't even home. When they kicked in the door of my house and I wasn't home, they found a gun in my bedroom. Now, in the state of Texas, 5 years after your conviction, you can own a gun in your primary residence. It's kind of like the pot laws in California. You can smoke marijuana recreationally, you can have it on, you can drive with it, but if the local police pull you over, it's no big deal. They don't care about it. But if the DEA catches you with marijuana, it's still federally illegal at the time that I'm recording this video. Well, it turns out the same thing works for felons with guns in Texas, but I didn't get that memo. And there was a picture on a cell phone, and I still remember taking the picture because it was me holding the gun with police-looking glasses and a police hat, and I was like, I'm an officer. And my girlfriend at the time had taken that picture. Well, when they confiscated my phone and that gun, those two things led to a conviction against me. The force of average saw me make 700 grand, had the perfect life, everything that I'd ever desired in my entire life I had, and then all of a sudden, boom, it was taken from me in an instant, back to average. Well, so I'm supposed to do 20 years in federal prison for having this gun. Turns out not only was it illegal for a felon to possess the firearm, but it was a Glock 357 caliber with a 17-round clip, and there had been some law passed to where clips could only have 10 rounds at the time. That law has since then expired. And so they offered me 20 years. Of course, I didn't take it, but it was only to stall. Luckily for me, I'm the most unlucky bastard on the fucking planet. Luckily for me, the lawyer that I had at the time ended up becoming the first black district attorney of Dallas County, the first Democrat elected district attorney of Dallas County. And I don't care your political association. I'm not a Democrat by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying these were two impossible things that happened in a red state. And at that same time, there were these bank robbers who were sitting in the Dallas County jail that the feds were trying to get their hands on, and my lawyer took my back. As he transitioned to DA, he said, one thing before I take office, I want Mr. Stewman to get probation. And the ATF refused to give me probation because this was my second strike. And most felons that have a gun end up doing 10 to 20 years. And so what happened was he exchanged those bank robbers for me, and I got sentenced to 15 months federal prison time. Right before I went to federal prison, I married my girlfriend, gave her control of my entire estate. I had 33 houses under management that weren't paid off for cash. They had mortgages against them. I was collecting rent. I had massive amounts of money in my bank account. I had a successful mortgage pipeline full of loans. And within 90 days of me hitting the prison yard, she ran away with the landscaper to spend all my money and sent me a letter that I had to read. Now imagine this setting. You're in prison. It's Tough Guy Central. And it's mail time. And they hand out mail to everybody, and you get a letter from your wife, so you get all excited. Oh yeah, my bitch sent me a letter. And you open the letter, and the letter says, listen here, motherfucker. I've been fucking the yard guy for over a year now. I set you up. You're in prison now. I'm taking every dollar you've ever fucking earned. I'm taking your entire pipeline. I'm gonna spread lies about you and hate and deceit, and I'm gonna ruin your fucking life. And if you try to do anything, I'll make it to where you don't so much as even come out of that motherfucker with $1. I was released from federal prison. I walked in with almost $1 million net worth. I was released from federal prison 15 months later with $25 to my name. July 11th, 2008, I left the prison, the federal prison system, with a check for $25 because that's what they give you when you're a broke fuck and you leave. I walked across the street, the Arab guys over at the 7-Eleven charged me $5 to cash that check. That was their racket. They knew every day dumbasses like me that were broke needed to cash the check. Right next door, McDonald's, I have my first chance to have a free world meal. They got another $10 from me. Remember, there was a time when we didn't call them French fries, we called them freedom fries. Those were freedom fries to me, which left me with $10 to my name less than 10 years ago. I had to move into a house with my stepfather and my mother that I had bought for them. They treated me like a kid again, like I was beneath them. My stepdad even had me go out and buy drugs for him and put me in terrible situations. I remember one time he sent me with an automatic weapon to Fort Worth to sell it for him on his behalf. What if I'd have got caught? There would have been no coming back ever, but no fucks given. And you think it's okay because it's my parents and they have my back, but I realized they didn't. I got out, I rekindled with my high school sweetheart. We got married. I got a job as a mortgage guy, became one of the top loan officers in the United States of America in 2009. I was released in 2008. And 2009 was the worst year on record to ever write mortgages ever. If you were in the loan business in 2009, you were killing yourself. They were jumping out of windows. They were shooting themselves. They were taking jobs. It was a terrible time to go in the mortgage business, but I wasn't going to wash cars. So I go and I begged this company, the largest privately owned mortgage bank in Texas. I begged them for a job, man. I'm a closer. I came in, I closed them with everything I had. And within 90 days, I became the top producer of that bank. Put me in the top 1% originators in the world. And in 2009, I closed 183 mortgages when people were shooting themselves when they couldn't close one. But in 2010, I got married to my high school sweetheart that I mentioned, which would be my third marriage. I left out the first one for a reason, which would be my third marriage. And in 2010, when Obama signed the Dodd-Frank Act into law, they took my financial license from me because one of the caveats was if you've ever committed a federal crime, you cannot obtain a mortgage license until 7 years after your release date. I had 1 year after my release date. I lost everything. I went from making $300,000 in 2009 to nothing in 2010. But I wasn't gonna wash cars. I went and I asked one of my friends, I said, I was a real estate agent I did business with. I was gonna ask him for a job. I met with him for lunch. I still remember today, he was dressed like Jake from State Farm. He had a red polo shirt on that said KW Cares because it was KW Red Day, Keller Williams Red Day, and he had khaki pants on, and he was just so excited. And he said, I just came back from this conference and I learned about this thing called internet marketing. And this internet marketing thing, man, it's mind blowing. It's like the wild, wild west. You could just shoot up people and just walk in, take all the money and walk out. I'm like, whoa, 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 what are you talking about? And he says, I paid $8,000 for these DVDs. Now I know my friend to be one of the like tightest people on the planet. Like, you ain't getting $1 out of him. He's tighter than a frog's ass in water. And when he told me he paid $8,000 for these DVDs, he said, I'd like for you to watch them because I know what happened to you. And I want you to get some insight on how you can become an internet marketer. So I took these DVDs, I took them home and I watched them, and it taught you how to code, how to do HTML code, which is, you know, irrelevant these days. You don't need it to do those things these days. They have softwares that are so much better, but this was old school. And it took me months to build out this internet funnel. Again, my life's been a roller coaster. Make money, lose money. Get happy, get sad. I build out this funnel, this sales funnel, this series of websites. It starts making me money. And I start teaching loan officers how to do what I did. And then one day I took my last $20,000 and I put it in a Google Ads campaign, and I made $100,000 almost in sales, only to find out that the rules had changed since I left the business. And I got charged back not only the almost $100,000, but I lost my last $20,000 in ad spend again. I was flat broke. It was at that point that my third wife decided she'd had enough of the ups and downs of my life, and she started finding a way out. We divorced a few years later after we had a kid, and I ended up selling cars for 6 months. Again, I became the top producer at the car dealership, only to realize that wasn't for me, and I had to chase this entrepreneurial dream, and she couldn't take me chasing this entrepreneurial dream and living this life of ups and downs, so we divorced. I worry about my son. I wasn't gonna have custody of him. I was only gonna see him as a kid that I used to kiss every night and read stories to, and now all of a sudden I get to see him every other weekend. What the fuck? You see, because every time I escalated, I was thinking I would be happily ever after. Oh, I just made $300,000. I've been released from prison. Now I get to live happily ever after with the woman and the kid of my dreams. Oh, I just got my mortgage license. Oh, I just learned this internet marketing thing. I made a bunch of money. Let me dump all my money in it. I'll live happily ever after. And guess what? I lost it. Well, at least I've got my marriage left, and I've got this great marriage, and she had one foot out the door and I lost it. Because I always thought that if I just leveled up financially, all the other problems I had would be fixed, which is a lie. There's 4 areas you have to level up in. Faith, and I'm not talking faith in God. I'm not talking faith in spirituality, faith in the universe. I'm talking about faith in here, faith in yourself. There's your finances, which we've talked about. You have to level up in your finances. You have to level up in your fitness. You can have all the money in the world, but as soon as cancer settles in on your body because you haven't taken care of it, you'll spend every dollar you've ever earned and go through complete misery to stay alive. Family is your 4th one. And you see, I always thought if I just make enough money, I've always been into personal fitness. If I just make enough money, if I just stay in shape, then everything else will take care of itself. And I left, see, that's average. 2 out of 4 is average. That's 50%. I left the family and the faith off the table. And every time that I would level up in fitness, every time that I would get stronger, every time I would get richer, I would leave my family behind and I would abandon the faith that I needed to have in myself and in how things work around here. One day I decided I'd had enough. I had enough of this. I went through every seminar you could think of. I hired every mentor. I've hired some of the toughest mentors in the world, from David Goggins, who's known as the world's most dangerous, fittest man, to Frank Kern, to Russell Brunson, to Marshall Silver. I've worked with the brightest and best minds personally, hand in hand, at their houses, weekly phone calls. I've read every book that you can imagine on personal development. I've read every book imaginable on business at one time, but I never leveled up on personal side. But one day I had enough and I started really digging into how this world works. And I realized that I kept leveling up in one area and leveling down in the other. I kept realizing that I'd have one great month and one bad month, one awesome year and one bad year. And I thought, why can't I just continue to have the trajectory and the momentum to get where I want to get? Why does every up have to have a down? And then I realized Newton's universal law applies across the universe. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so what I had to learn to do was prepare myself for that reaction. You see, in the stock market, when somebody that is financially savvy buys a stock, they buy a put or a call against it to ensure that if that stock sinks, they can sell and they've protected their asset. But see, I wasn't doing that with my life. I was just expecting my equity, my value of that stock inside myself to take off, and I was never prepared for the downside. But so we know that there's this force of average on this planet. And we know that the trick the force of average uses against you is the struggle. So you're asking, okay, so Ryan, we know that the force of average exists. We know that the trick it uses against you is the struggle. How do we combat that? One word: focus. You see, we live in a world of distraction. Do you realize there's 4,000 advertisements every single day that we're subjected to distract us? Not just because we need to buy things, but because the strongest thing on this planet is in between your ears, this gray matter in between these two pieces of your skull. And the strongest tool that the strongest thing on this planet has is focus. And so everything the force of average does is to keep you distracted. Because when you get focused on leveling up in your family, guess what? You level up in your family. When you get focused on leveling up in your fitness, guess what? Your fitness levels up. When you get focused on leveling up in your finances, guess what? Your finances level up. Guess what? When you get focused on the faith in yourself, then your faith levels up. But what the trick is to get you to only level up in one area or another so that your downfall's waiting. You see, those 4 areas are the 4 areas that matter the most. And if you'll level up across all 4 areas, if you'll pay attention and if you'll focus on those 4 areas, you don't need 67 steps, you don't need 20, you don't need 12 steps, you don't need 20 reasons, 10 reasons. It's 4 areas that you watch to protect yourself against. And if you'll just simply focus on the best, being the best that you can be in those 4 areas, your life will beat the force of average. Because see, now, less than 10 years after I walked out of that federal prison with $25 to my name, I have one of the most beautiful wives, as I've told you, on the planet. And there's no man that can look at her and say that that's not the truth. And not only is she beautiful, she's a good cook, she's a loving human being, and I'm not easy to deal with. And I feel like the universe made her for me. I have 3 of the handsomest boys, and it's not because I have good genes or she has good genes or my ex-wife has good genes. It's because I have molded them to be able to fight the force of average and to be able to focus and I focused on making these kids the best that I can possibly make them, showing up and shining every day in their life. I'm a multimillionaire more times over than I care to tell you. To give you an example, I own 4 houses, I have 7 cars, I travel first class all around the world. I speak on stages in front of thousands of people. I'm one of the most popular internet marketers and sales trainers and business owners on the planet. I'm regularly featured in Forbes at least once a week. I'm featured in Entrepreneur, Huffington Post, and Inc., and pretty much every other publication that you can talk about. I'm in decent shape. I'm not here to brag about how nice my body is, but I'm in decent shape. I put my body through the ringer every single day, and I have a faith in myself that it was never there before. But see, I was conditioned. See, we are conditioned for our cognitive comprehension from ages 3 to 7. And during the ages of 3 to 7 in my life, you think about it, my family lost everything. My dad left me. My stepdad changed the landscape of how the family dynamic thing happened. I lost my name. I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was. I lost faith in myself. And what happens is most of us weren't wired for success from birth. We don't have rich parents that are going to send us to some Ivy League, spoon-fed, silver spoon bullshit school. So we wind up in sales and entrepreneurism, and we wind up on drugs trying to silence the voice that's taking us through the force of average and trying to help us fight these barriers. And I had lost that identity and who I was and that faith in myself, but I found it. And I'm here to tell you that for the last 5 years of my life, I'm not perfect, but I have seen nothing but a trajectory. Now, does the struggle avoid me? It shows up every morning, every single morning. But I'm not waking up thinking this is happily ever after. I'm waking up thinking, what challenges do I have to solve? Because I know when every challenge arises, every time that I get to beat that challenge, if I rise to the equation, it's a chance for me to grow. You see, when you work out in the gym, let me tell you this, for everything in the natural, there's a supernatural correlation. You see, when you work out in the gym and your muscles grow, you push yourself to failure in order for your muscles to grow. In business, you push yourself to failure in order for your business to grow. In your personal limitations of how much you believe in yourself, you push yourself to failure in order to grow. When you push the limitations of leveling your family up, you push them to failure in order to grow, because failure is times for a lesson, and lessons how we learn, and learning is how you grow. You see, I've hacked the code of the force of average, and focus is only one part. In faith, family, finances, and fitness, they're a small portion of how to hack this code. If you're watching this, that means that you're tired of falling victim to the force of average too, and it's time for you to hack the code. I want to help you get through that. I want to help you mentally achieve, physically achieve, financially achieve, and familiarity achieve everything that you want in your life. And I want to convince you that you deserve it, because the biggest blockade that I ever had my entire life to keep me from where I was to where I am now is believing in myself. And understanding that that belief in myself was the thing that allowed me to have the things that I have today. And again, my life is not perfect because the struggle shows up every day. And I guarantee you, the struggles I fight are a lot bigger than the struggles the average person fights, because I'm doing things on a big level and the force of average is coming at me 100 million times stronger than it is the average person. But guess what? I've hacked the code. And for every time that I get out of focus, the quickest thing I can do is get out of that reset period and get right back into being focused again. And those are the things that I want to teach you. If you're tired of living life the way that you've been living life, some of us are 38 years old, but we've had 1 year's experience 38 years in a row, not 38 years of experience. And if you say that you're tired of having 1 year's experience 38 years in a row, if you're tired of falling victim to the force of average, I want you to click the button below this, and I want you to join me in a special program with special people where I can help you hack the code. But what I want you to do before you push the button is I want you to listen to this.
My name is Stewman, and I'm a CEO of a business that coaches CEOs, executives, small business owners, entrepreneurs. I've been in the business for the last 15 years, and over the last 6 weeks since talking with Ryan and coming down here to his headquarters to work with him, our business has seen a dramatic shift in sales and as well as marketing and advertising. Now, like, there's a lot of people out there who sell funnels and they have ideas, and there's lots of people who promote the stuff. And I would just say right now, I've been in the business, I've been around some of the best, even the creators of funnels themselves, and Ryan is one of the best when it comes to targeting, marketing, getting the right message across, and he genuinely cares about people. So in our business alone, we're literally going towards probably like 100-200% increase thanks to Ryan. Get with us here, because your business will change, your trajectory will change, your life will change. Highly recommend, 2 thumbs up, follow him right now.
You know, I followed Ryan Stewman for 2 years. 2 years this guy kept showing up in my life. And then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna try this out. I signed up for Break Free Academy, came out to meet with Ryan, and after our first meeting, you know, I met Ryan, and I walked away from that meeting that night and I said, you know, this guy's gonna change my life. When I joined Break Free Academy, it was about increasing my mortgage business. And then as we got into it, we decided, you know, that's gonna come organically. Now we're just changing my life and working on all my extra goals. So I owe it all to Ryan Stewman. I would not be here without him. And he's a real guy.
What's up, everybody? Michael Onk, owner of EHS Roofing here in Dallas, Texas. My business has increased dramatically. His programs really are top-notch. The things that I have learned have allowed me to market only with Facebook. It's been the most cost-effective way that we have been able to scale the business by far. It's not even close. The funnels that he teach will have leads pouring into your inbox to the point where I at least have to turn them off. I highly recommend you get in one of these programs. Start with Entourage, maybe jump straight into Push to Excellence. Get the one-on-one training that you need to take your business to the next level.
Hello everybody, my name is Andrew Ammons. I'm a solutions provider in general contracting. I want to take a couple seconds to talk to you guys about Break Free Academy and Ryan Stewman in general. As soon as I got involved in his stuff, I started seeing a huge explosion in my business, mostly because of change in mindset, right? I was surrounded by a group of people who were like-minded, who were looking to take their business to the next level. So I encourage you guys who are looking into it now, take a step outside your comfort zone and get involved, because there's a world of opportunity around you, and this is the right place to be.
Hey, what's up, guys? Adam Stark here, hanging out at the Hardcore Closer headquarters with my good friend, mentor, and former business partner, Ryan Stewman. If you don't know me, I'm the coldest realtor west of the Mississippi. If you don't know that and you don't believe me, you can ask my competition. But listen, I'm here to just give a quick testimonial for what's been going on in my life over the last 4 years since I've met Ryan, been working with him and implementing the system. So just kind of a quick background. 4 years ago, when I first reached out to Ryan to join into the program, I've been through just about every program he's had, all the way up into his highest level mastermind groups. But at that particular point in time, I was doing about 40, 50 transactions a year, a couple $100,000 in GCI. And so to put things in perspective, after this last 4 years of implementing the systems, following the teachings that he puts out, this last year we did just over 220 transactions and about $1.2 million in GCI. So obviously you can tell from just doing simple math where we are, where we went to where we currently are as a team, and myself as an individual. So obviously, man, we've moved up our lifestyle. I'm able to better support my family. Listen, if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about, is this right for me? Is this stuff legit? Are these people real? You can look me up. I'm a real dude. Adam Stark out of Jefferson City, Missouri, top real estate agent in my market. Slowly but surely moving into other people's markets. Might be yours coming soon, so you might want to jump off that fence and hop into these programs before I come for your people as well. That's it, guys. Thanks a lot.